Hi, it's Jordan Teen 1, and today I'm happy to share with you one of my new character bracelets for the Alpha Loom. And as you can see, it is the Super Mario Brothers. So there's Mario and Luigi, Princess Peach, and Bowser. So I'm actually really happy with the way that this turned out. It was a labor of love to try and get this to work because it's very hard to fit characters onto just these 7 rows and have it actually look like the character it's supposed to look like. So I hope that everyone likes it as much as I do. For my band counts, I used a total of 385 bands. So I will tell you the number that I used. Yours may differ a little bit from that depending on the size of your wrist. But I used 147 black, 19 red, 40 white, 18 green. I used 6 of the dark blue and 2 turquoise, 8 orange, 21 yellow. I used 12 of the dark green and then just 1 purple, but you could change that. That was just for the gem on Princess Peach's crown, so you could make that whatever color you want. I used 78 of the skin tone bands, 22 brown, and then I also used 11 gold for the crown, which I don't show here, but that came out of the Rainbow Loom metallic pack. And then you also need your clear bands that tie the rows together, so I'll be using 55 of those. Now I'm going to add a grid pattern above my bracelet here, and so you can just pause your video and follow along with that. But let me just tell you a little bit more about the bracelet itself. For this one I used 55 rows, and when I measured it, it was about 7 3/4 inches. So you may need to make yours a little bit shorter or longer depending on the size of your wrist. And there is a grid template that comes in the Alpha Loom instructions, so you can just measure that with your wrist to see how long you need to make your own. And then if you do need to shorten it, you would want to cut down on the end rows. So for this particular bracelet, the characters themselves are actually kind of long, so there's really not a lot of space in between to cut down. So you have 2 plain rows on each of the ends and then 2 plain rows between each of the characters. So you're going to need at least 1 in between each of the characters, so you could lessen each one of these black rows, but that's probably about the shortest you'll be able to get it. I do have another Mario bracelet that I'll be coming out with shortly that has other characters that aren't quite as long, so if you feel like the rows for these characters themselves are just too long, you can wait until I have the other bracelet and then you can mix and match the characters. Or you could also just do a bracelet with only 3 characters. And then I just want to talk a little bit about the bands that are not Alpha Loom bands. So I have the skin tone bands, which are regular Rainbow Loom size bands. So you do have to double them in order for it to work. And also the brown bands are regular size rubber bands, so you will have to double them as well. So let me just give you a really brief explanation on how to double a band. So I've laid out a pattern here for one of the rows. This is the row that has Mario's eyes on it, since it incorporates both the brown and the skin tone. So you can see the size difference in the bands. So when you have a band that needs to be doubled because it's a regular size, all you're going to do is just place it on your pin, twist, and then put it back on. At least that's the way I found the easiest to do it. And then I just take my hook and stretch these 2 loops across to the other side. And then you would just lay your Alpha Loom bands regular, so just stretch them straight across. And then here with the skin tone, again, we're going to have to double, so you just put it on, twist, and then loop it back on, and then just stretch that across with your hook. And then you would just continue down. And then at the bottom here, again, just double it, and then use your hook to stretch it over. So I'll put the grid back up and you can pause your video and continue making your bracelet. And I would just like to point out also, I didn't mention, that when you do use the doubled bands, you will notice that the bracelet is thicker or puffier there. So that's just because you're dealing with 2 loops instead of 1, so it's just going to be fuller. But personally, I like the look of the Alpha Loom bands with the regular bands. I think it gives the bracelet some character. So I hope that everyone loves their new Super Mario bracelets. You can always leave me comments on YouTube and Facebook, post pictures of your creations to my Facebook page, and please feel free to subscribe to my YouTube channel so you can stay up to date on my latest tutorials. You can also find me on Pinterest and Instagram, so please feel free to subscribe to those as well. Thanks for watching!